Hello there, I'm Ed Turzanski, and welcome to Worth Hearing. If you reside anywhere on this planet, in a home or if you work at a place of business, somewhere you've got a piece of electronic equipment, consumer or business, with the name Panasonic. You may not see it because it may be in your heater, in some other major part of your home or place of business, but Panasonic is known all over the world. And that's why we're very pleased to have today as our guest, Mr. Joseph Taylor, who is the President and Chief Executive Officer of Panasonic North America. He is the first American ever to hold that post and one of only two non-Japanese members of the board of directors of that company. Joe, welcome to LaSalle University and Worth Hearing.
Ed, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So Joe, here's what most people know about Panasonic. They make great TVs, video and audio equipment. So I've got a stereo or DVD player in my house. I'm at work and I see Panasonic copiers and pencil sharpeners, everything else. But Panasonic's a lot more than that, and the company's evolving in ways that you may know those consumer and business aspects of the business best today, but over time, there's going to be something different and in some respects more exciting coming. What's going on at Panasonic?
So Ed, Panasonic is almost 100 years old. We'll be 100 years old in 2018. We're $100 billion, and we have a portfolio almost unmatched by anybody in the world. But to make it to 100 years, we had to change a lot, and to go into the next 100 years, we have to change a lot. And I think you can expect some really bold changes from Panasonic over just the next 5 years.
Where are you going? What is the latest, most exciting thing that Panasonic has going on? Because, and I'm holding back here because I know about it, but I want you to tell our viewers because it really sounds exciting.
So when people think of Panasonic, they think of consumer electronics. And we're one of the world's great consumer electronics companies. But what may surprise them is less than half of our revenue comes from consumer electronics. And so those are the areas you're going to see from us. As I look out into the next 5 to 10 years, the two biggest issues facing people around the world are healthcare and the environment. And both of those areas, we have very strong initiatives going. And the one you're referring to, the one I'm most proud of, is what we're calling the Fujisawa Smart Sustainable City.
You've just come back from Japan, and as we tape this, we're a few days past the 1-year anniversary of that horrible earthquake and tsunami that struck Japan. It's remarkable how the Japanese comported themselves through that and how they're rallying themselves for recovery, but also moving forward. And this Fujisawa city of the future sounds really like something. It's literally the phoenix rising from the ashes. What is it, and what's the applicability for people around the world?
I think one of the projects that I'm most proud of in my career is the one we're yet to do, and that's the Fujisawa Smart City. In the aftermath of the tsunami, which was just 1 year ago, and you had mentioned I just came back from Japan. It seems I'm always just coming back from Japan. And I happened to be in Japan during the tsunami, which was indescribably destructive and tragic. But we reviewed what we're going to do into the future, and one of the things we thought of is how can we contribute more to society? We had a very large industrial complex in a town called Fujisawa, which is about 30 miles north of Tokyo. And as we raised this industrial complex, we decided in collaboration with the city that we would build the world's first smart, eco-friendly, sustainable city from the ground up, from the very design of the homes and all of the products that comprise a home, all the products you use in a home, as well as the community itself. So we've already broken ground. It will house at its peak about 3,000 families. These homes will be designed to essentially be off the grid. So with solar panels, fuel cells, storage batteries, with energy management systems, so that any excess energy that's created will be able to be sold back to the utility. All of the materials used in the homes will be state-of-the-art, sustainable green products. All of the appliances used in the home, the most energy efficient that you can build in the world. Each of these homes almost will be off the grid. But not just the homes themselves. We're building the whole community with this sustainability in mind. So the town center and the stores and the shops, all of those in the same fashion will be energy efficient, will be able to create their own energy. And in fact, no internal combustion engines will be allowed in the town. So there'll be a pool of shared electric vehicles. So it's going to be absolutely amazing. Ground is broken, as I said. In 2014, people will start moving in.
Are there components from this, once you've gotten this city underway, are there components that you'll be able to sell around the world to replicate in some measure what you're going to be doing in this city or the future? Because obviously in a place like Philadelphia, there's just too much stranded infrastructure. The costs of trying to replicate what you're going to be doing are prohibitive. But it strikes me that piecemeal over time, there are innovations that could come into all of our communities that will come from this city.
I think, Ed, to answer your question simply, yes, there are many parts and pieces from this that we can use around the world. But let me just say that we already have on the drawing board 2 more of these sustainable smart cities in Japan. We're working on 2 in China and 1 in Malaysia as well. So don't dismiss too quickly the idea of building a city from the ground up. That's not to say that all of these pieces and parts can't be used independently, but I think we're trying to send a message, and maybe parts and pieces isn't the way we want to start out. Maybe we want to start out with the whole show to prove that the concept is viable and doable and the right thing to do.
For major municipalities, one of the real challenges when it comes to energy is replacing liquid fuels for transportation. How do you get at that, in addition to electric cars that they're going to be shared on some sort of basis? Do you have a large transportation infrastructure that is public in nature?
The infrastructure in Japan is very significantly different than in the United States. I think when we talk about the infrastructure, let's talk about the cost of energy to begin with. Cost of energy in Japan is between 8 and 10 times the cost of energy here. The size of a home in Japan is significantly different than the size of the home in the US. I think if we're really going to be an eco-nation, a green nation, we have to change the way we think about everything in the way we live. Do we really need a 4,000 square foot home? Do we really need 6-cylinder and 8-cylinder automobiles? I think we have to change everything about the way we think about energy, and then the infrastructure will follow. So in Japan, there's no homes that are fueled by oil, for instance. Of course, you can understand that by the nation being subject to earthquakes, it's not a good idea. So from the very nature of that, it's very different. But when you look at a home that's almost self-sustainable through solar power and fuel cells, it completely changes the way you think about your infrastructure as well.
Joe, help us understand the interaction of Panasonic with the Japanese government in making all of this happen.
So this may surprise many Americans, but there's no government subsidy, there's no government incentive for us building this, nor is there any incentives for the consumers that will be buying the home. We already owned the land, and when I say in collaboration with the city of Fujisawa, that means that the city fully supported what we're trying to do. And to the extent that any city supports infrastructure, they'll build the roads, they'll put in whatever utilities that cities normally do. But beyond that, this is an independent private initiative by Panasonic and other partners that we've chosen. But as we mentioned earlier, Panasonic does many different things. We build homes in Japan. We're one of the world's largest appliance manufacturers, in addition to be one of the world's largest electronics companies. We bought Sanyo Electric, which we've incorporated, which is one of the world's leading providers of solar panels and batteries for storage. So many of these components, most of the components that go into a home or go into a city, we can provide on our own.
And there's a metric that I recently heard that surprised me, quite frankly, although the more I thought about it, the less surprised I was, that Panasonic has more patents for electronic inventions in the last 2 years than anyone else. Is that right?
You picked a real sweet spot for me. One of my biggest frustrations, if I asked 100 people on the street to name the world's leading technology companies, I can guess the companies they would name. Almost none of them would name Panasonic. In the last 30 years, Panasonic ranks in the top 5 in the world for patents granted, patents applied for intellectual property. And in fact, for the last 2 years, Panasonic has been granted more patents than any other company in the world. I would say that's a pretty good definition of a technology company, wouldn't you?
Oh, I think so. And it really does speak to an incredible ethos. As you look at Panasonic, self-reliance, independence, responsibility, not just in terms of their business practices, but also the clientele they serve. And it speaks very highly that the Japanese would look outside of their cultural group to pick a president, and they did that with you. How did you get into Panasonic, and how did you become their president?
I think the Japanese had a weak moment, Ed. I think that was really the secret.
Yeah, but they haven't recovered. They must have liked the buy because they've kept
Well,
it.
we never like to admit we made a mistake, so we're just going to struggle through it. As in many things in life, a lot of it was happenstance. I ended up with Panasonic. They asked me to start a business. To be very honest, I had tried to start 2 businesses on my own when I was a very young man in my 20s. Ironically, one of those businesses was a hydroelectric power business and the other was a solar power business. So I was just 40 years ahead of my time. And perhaps Panasonic saw that in me at some point. But they asked me to come and start a what we call an OEM business, a compressor business for air conditioning. And it was pretty successful. And then the rest is history. Here we are almost 29 years later, and I'm the chairman and CEO of the Americas. So it's been a remarkable run, and one with lots of ups and downs. But I will say that the Japanese always supported me and always gave me the kind of faith and encouragement that you need to be the CEO of a corporation.
Joe, as you assess the state of the economy globally, and very specifically in the United States, what do you see the prospects overall for the economy, but also for Panasonic and the sales of its various components?
Ed, we're in so many segments. That's an advantage and a disadvantage. So often when the economy is down in one area, we can supplement it in others. Since the Lehman shock in 2008, all of our businesses struggled, as in North America, as probably many other corporations. But what I've seen over the last 18 months to 2 years, we see a really significant recovery in a lot of different areas. Consumer is a difficult business, maybe the most difficult business that we're participating in for lots of different reasons. But our B2B business, particularly in automotive, avionics, we have very substantial business. They're really, really doing well. We've seen double-digit growth over the last 2 years, and I'm expecting almost 120% year over year next year in those non-consumer areas. So I'm very bullish. Even though we're not out of the woods yet, I see very, very positive signs, and we're very bullish on 2012. Are
there parts of the world that are more robust in their recovery than others, and where does the United States rank in all this?
Europe is really, really struggling right now. It's very well documented, and we've read all the stories about Spain and Portugal and Greece. So they're struggling, and I think they're going to continue to struggle at least throughout the next calendar year. But Brazil is booming. We've talked about Brazil for 25 years as the next emerging country. I think they are on the brink of it, and I think the World Cup and the Olympics has been kind of the stimulus for that.
Sure, and of course, they do appear finally to be the point of being able to take advantage of the great natural resources that the country has, specifically in energy reserves. And as you look at this sustainability portion of your business, do you see yourself getting more and more into energy research and providing the kinds of cutting edge discoveries that are needed to help us get past fossil fuels?
Most of our research on the energy side is around wind and solar power as it relates to creating energy. But we spend much more time trying to understand how we can store energy and manage energy and create devices that use less energy and create manufacturing cycles that are more energy and eco-friendly. So not so much in the creation of energy, but in all the other aspects, I think a great deal of our R&D is going.
Batteries. Are you working on anything to do with batteries in automobiles?
Oh yeah, another sweet spot for us. So everybody's heard about Tesla. They have the sexiest EV in the world. That's 100% powered by Panasonic batteries. We recently announced a project with Ford, so we'll be the battery supplier for Ford's EV. And we've worked for years with Honda, Nissan, and Toyota as some of the leading EV battery manufacturers. As I mentioned, we purchased Sanyo 2 years ago. Two of the key components in the Sanyo portfolio were solar panels and lithium-ion storage batteries. We had our own lithium-ion chemistry, but we felt that Sanyo's was the most progressive in the world, and so that's integrated very, very nicely into our energy strategy.
How many people do you employ worldwide, and in how many countries?
We're in every country in the world, every country, and at last count, about 450,000 employees. That's a lot.
And is there a flight plan that you have in terms of number of employees?
Probably the flight plan is a little less than 450,000 employees. Frankly, we're still in the process. We bought two large companies, Sanyo and Panasonic Electric Works has been incorporated. So probably overall, globally, the numbers will come down a bit as we look at redundancies, but it's still going to be a very high number.
I suppose it's hard to figure out who your competition is, or at least to answer the question directly, because you're in so many different things. But from your perch, which companies are you in the hottest competition with?
You know, Ed, I would never name another company to give them credibility for being able to compete with us.
Okay.
How's that for my answer?
That was well played. So let's drill down to what got you to Panasonic and has brought you back here. You're an alumnus of LaSalle College, now university, from the class of 1974. What did you study, and how did it prepare you for the steps that took you to the position you hold today?
You know, these are state secrets. And I'll only share a little bit because most of it's not a pretty story. But I came to LaSalle because I wanted to be a doctor. In 100 years ago when I started here, LaSalle was one of the...
Panasonic was just beginning.
We started at the same time. I was going in college as Konosuke Matsushita was creating his corporation. But as today, 40 years ago, LaSalle had one of the premier pre-med programs in the country. So I believed I was going to be a world-famous surgeon. But we had a very famous head of the chemistry department. I won't mention his name, God rest in peace, but he convinced me I was not going to be a doctor. And he was right, I'm not a doctor. And so I became a non-science major, and I finagled my way into the world of technology, and then the rest is history. But I think what I learned at LaSalle, a couple of important lessons: integrity, never giving up, just keep grinding it out because you can get where you need to go, and the importance of a strong education. Those are the lessons that I learned here that have served me well over many, many years.
Well, how has the place changed? You've been away a while, and today you had more of a look at the campus than you've had in the last 4 decades. What strikes you most about the changes at the university?
The kids are so young. I don't remember the kids being that young. And the campus is remarkable. I don't know the exact number, but it's got to be 4 or 5 times larger than it was when I was here. And all the buildings that I remember, like the library is no longer the library, and the gym is no longer the gym, and the parking lot's no longer the parking lot. but Holroyd Hall still gives me a lump in my throat, but not for a good reason.
You know, Roland Holroyd, for whom the hall's named, longtime professor of biology at the university, used to refer to Worcester Hall, which was the high school, as the small mammal house, because that's where the high school kids were. So there's lots of lore about the campus. What would you say to a youngster entering university studies today in terms of preparing themselves for the kind of environment that they'll face, certainly not just in the world generally, but very specifically in terms of their job search?
Do you know, I think one of the biggest fears that kids have coming out of high school is they're asked by their parents and their teachers and even the universities, what do you want to be? And I think we put too much pressure on some kid to decide what he wants to be. I don't think you need to know when you're 17 years old or when you're 25 years old or when you're 30 years old. I don't think you need to know what you want to be at that age. I think you need to have a great, solid education, and that means you need to be able, the other thing LaSalle taught me, maybe the most important thing, is to think deeply about subjects. We're a nation, we like sound bites, we like surface discussion. If you can think deeply, you can learn anything. You can be successful anywhere if you can understand everything that's going on around you, both sides of a story, the environment that you're involved with. So find something you like to do. But in this environment, it's not that easy. Today, you just have to get a job.
And that's true enough. Do you see a difference in the Japanese mindset around thinking deeply within a culture, or within a corporation, I should say, as opposed to an American mindset?
I do. I see, but I don't say that positively or negatively. There's pluses and minuses to both management styles. The Japanese are famous for the consensus style management. And the advantage of that is you discuss a subject to death, but everybody's involved in the decision. Everybody understands the process. Everybody has a chance to kind of communicate what's involved, but it takes a long time. The American style is more unilateral, but that tends to disengage some people that may be involved in the ultimate execution of it. So I think what I've learned is kind of a collaboration of those two business styles actually works best.
Well, it sounds as if it's a portion of your success to be able to bridge those two, not necessarily mutually exclusive, but to take the best of both and to merge them. Have you found that? Have you consciously thought about that in your career?
I think time by time I think about it. Sometimes it happens by accident. Sometimes I don't do it at all. I'm just like everybody else. When I think deeply, then I merge the two. But when I don't think deep, if I'm angry, I do it the American way. And if I'm jet lagged, I do it the Japanese way. So I have a combination of all of them.
What do you think the coming year is going to be like for Panasonic?
We're coming out of a very difficult year. So we're almost 100 years old. Any company that exists 100 years, particularly a $100 billion company, is going to go through peaks and valleys. We're coming through a very difficult trough over the last 3 or 4 years as we try to transform ourselves from where we were to where we have to be. So we've publicly announced a rather large loss for this fiscal year, which ends in just a couple of weeks. I'm very confident that the acquisitions that we made over the last 2 or 3 years, the transformation and the restructuring that we've done globally, and with the analysis and the products that we're coming out with in different areas, I think we're very, very well positioned to start moving forward over the next 5 years. And I think 2012 is going to be a good year for us.
Will it be a good year in terms of consumer electronics? I know you're getting away from it, but people still, there's a lot of brand loyalty. I know there is in my household to Panasonic products. And are you going to continue to try innovations in those fields?
We have no intention of exiting the consumer electronics space, none whatsoever. But we've had significant losses, financial losses, in the consumer space over the last 4 years. So we're restructuring that. We'll offer significantly less products in terms of different models of a TV, for instance, in 2012, focusing a bit more on profitability. But I don't think in any way will that slow down our innovation. I think you're going to continue to see remarkable products from us into the future. Smart TVs is the big thing for this year. OLED, organic LED, that'll be a product that'll be successful into the future. So don't worry about us in consumer electronics. We're here to stay.
And as far as business products, business to business sales, what are the prospects there for the coming year?
Awesome. We have probably you've heard about our Tough Book. You just say yes.
Yes.
It's a niche market. It's the toughest tablet laptop in the world. We're introducing a tablet version of that coming this June. High definition video conferencing, so I don't have to travel to Japan every month. This is like we're sitting apart right now. We have some just remarkable things coming out. You may not know we take a leading position in sports and entertainment venues. So the Staples Center, for instance, that has the world's largest high-definition indoor hung scoreboard. That's by Panasonic.
Now, and you're going to stick to electronics and electronic innovations. You're not going to get into entertainment or management of facilities or anything of that sort, right?
We're not going to get into running concerts. We're sticking to technology. But I think there's going to be a large shift from us from box sales, selling a product, to what we call solutions. So not bundling products, but understanding a dilemma that a customer may have, connecting it all, installing it all, and servicing it all.
So you're solutions for life, right?
We're solutions for life.
That's
right.
I
like that. Can I take it?
Yes, you may. Came off your website, so you might as well take it back.
Oh, I already own it then.
Yes, you do. Joe Taylor, thanks very much. It's been a great half hour to sit here and discuss with you the fascinating company that you lead. All the best to you. And I know those of us who are beneficiaries of your products really do appreciate the quality that you bring into our homes and our places of work. And we're looking forward to having it in our big cities too. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. We look forward to seeing you the next time we have someone worth hearing.